Hey there, welcome. I am going to do something that I have never done before. I'm going to go back and look at my predictions for the year and see how I did. Now, the reason I haven't done that before is I've only shared these predictions in very small communities before this year. Now that I'm doing them more publicly here, I thought it would be interesting to go back and see the predictions I made to that small community, how they shook out, where I got it right, where I got it wrong. I'm going to try and be as honest with myself and you as I can be. And I invite you to look at what those predictions were and look back on your own year and see where did they land and where do you think I got them wrong. Now, through the course of this video, what I'm going to do is roll tape on what I had originally recorded back in January and give you some of my commentary on where I think I landed with those predictions. Before we jump in to the individual predictions, I thought it would be helpful for me to show you how I set up the predictions, what my intro to those predictions. I am going to jump in right now and say that Spirit had so much to say about the energy this year when I went into conversation. When I say Spirit, there is this body of wisdom that speaks to me. Sometimes there's a specific voice and there's a specific guide, but generally speaking, when I'm downloading this content for you, it's this larger source of love that is talking to us. And the big message, the highlight, which I've been saying leading up to this event, is that there's disruption is the headline, right? Disruption for why? Disruption for a reason. And the reason is to cause chaos externally so that there is this inward look of where your locus of power is, where your locus of control is. Where do you have power in your life? Where do you have control? And not the controlling of trying to control outcomes, but where do you have the ability to make a change? Where do you have the ability, no matter what's going on outside of you, to shift? And so I came out of meditation and knowing I was coming into this recording and saying, okay, what is it that you most want me to convey? And it is this, that the change must come from within. The change is coming from within. And there's this strong pulse of this through all the information I'm going to give you today about looking within, not looking outside yourself. The big headline was disruption with purpose. And I definitely stand by that. I think this year has taught a lot of people to understand what is working for them, what is not, because so many things were disrupted. And as I look through what I predicted, I would say that the disruption isn't contained in 2025. I think a lot of what I was seeing and feeling is going to continue into this new year, but it's going to have a different flavor because what we received in 2025 was meant to help us understand a few things about ourselves and the world at large. And I'll go into that as I go into each prediction. I think as we go into 2026, although the disruption will be present, it will be doing something different, which is it will be destabilizing things that those of us who are now much more aligned with a heart-centered, light-centered approach to our lives, as opposed to ego-driven goals. We just see that these disruptions are removing things that are ego-driven, that are not in service to more love-based living, more higher vibrational thinking. But let's jump in and see how you feel about it. I talked about the importance of following internal directives rather than looking for external answers. And I definitely stand by that. Let's hear how I talked about it back in January, and then we'll revisit it. So on navigating 2025, the three things we talked about were focus on internal directives versus external directives. Know that your way out, meaning out of a conundrum, out of a challenge, out of forward, is not necessarily someone else's. And this was about not always thinking that you have the answers for other people, focusing on the answers you have for yourself. And finally, manifestation will be happening very quickly, and that it's important for you to let things that are ending end, because it's as you allow them to end that the pop of manifestation can happen. This was the real illustrative part. So, internal versus external directives. When your inner world is guiding you towards something, it is going to be incredibly important for you to follow that this year more than ever. You're going to have to really take a leap of faith and trust that you're being guided somewhere important for yourself. And that may require violating social rules. And I don't mean, I've said this already, I don't mean things that are important to society. Like, I'm not talking about breaking actual laws that are going to have repercussions. Although, in some countries, that's necessary to create changes. There's protests that maybe would not be supported by the legal system, right? But just use judgment, use discernment. I'm talking more about the rules that get set up for us by our immediate social circles. This one showed up everywhere, whether it was clients telling me that they could no longer stay with jobs that were misaligned for them, that health challenges emerged when they stayed in situations that were not healthy for them. And let's not talk about those global headlines, right? Where people who did not follow what they knew to be right were finding themselves tripped up on a regular basis. And although I stand by this prediction, the shift I would make is that these internal directives became louder and louder so that they could not be ignored. Whereas in the beginning of the year, I felt like my job was more to really stress this to people. Looking back, I think Spirit took over and was stressing it perfectly well without people having to work hard at it. And in the case of people who were coming into my world later in the year, what I found is they were reeling with results of not having listened earlier. And I heard this over and over again. I wish I had just listened to my soul earlier. I wish I had followed the signs that Spirit was giving me. I wish I had followed the guidance that Spirit was giving me. And by the way, if you are interested in following signs and you're just not sure how they show up, I am going to drop a link below. I'll put a bunch of links below, but one of them I will give you is my free guide on how to understand signs. All right, let's go into my next prediction. This was one of the most interesting because it came through really hard, which was pay attention to March. And we'll revisit that in a second, but here's how I talked about it at the beginning of the year. So the two main timeframes that were shown to me were March, and I mentioned this on the forecast on Navigating 2025. March. What I'm seeing is around March 21st to about March 29th. These are approximate, could be like March 18th, could be the 23rd. I'm just seeing this wall of like heavy energy, unmovable energy. Something feels like something significant is going to happen. And it's going to be something that makes it hard to move forward. So ideally, what you would plan for that time would be to have a very low stress schedule, have a lot of flexibility with your time. If you own a business, I wouldn't try to be launching something. If you have a big event coming up, I wouldn't plan it for that period of time. You could be sitting here and be like, my wedding is that weekend, or, that's when we have a vacation plan. That's fine. That's fine. Don't change it and don't let this scare you. There's a reason why that date was on the books for you in particular. Just consider, what does it look like if a few things go haywire, or if maybe all your guests can't show up, or if travel arrangements are, have some difficulty. That's what that time frame allows for you. It doesn't mean you change plans that are already in place. If you haven't planned something, I would move it to the outskirts of that time window. But if you have something during that time, just like when you listen to a weather forecast, if it's going to rain, you bring an umbrella, right? Oof. Go pull up the global headlines from March 18th to March 28th, and I think you'll see what Spirit was trying to show us. I will say, I did think there was going to be a singular event. When the energy was coming through, I definitely felt like it was going to be something singular. That I don't think necessarily happened, but the combination of global events in the various countries, especially those that were dealing with warfare and violence, as well as the things that were coming out of the policies of the US government, really did lead to people feeling a stranglehold on their ability to move freely and make decisions clearly. But on a more energetic level, I saw with the clients I was working with that this guidance was really important, that they felt like they were walking through mud, that nothing was moving quickly or easily, and they felt incredibly tenuous about making choices. Knowing that we weren't supposed to be making really fast, hard moving choices during that time definitely helped me guide those clients. But I'm curious to know how your March worked for you. You might forget even what was happening in March. So maybe go back and look at your camera roll, take a look at the global headlines, think back to that time. Does this land for you? Next, I talked about two other time frames, July and September. And for sure, as I was getting the predictions, March, July, and September were big highlights. And that July to September arc was pretty specific. Let's see how I talked about it back then. So, July, big expansive energy. Now, this one, though, is a little bit different because expansive energy seems really fun, seems really exciting, and it will be if you're ready for it. So, between now and July, really be doing the work to get yourself ready for an expansion, to hold expanded energy. What does that mean? Build your courage muscle, build the trust that good things are coming in, feel them coming in before they're actually here. Visualize your energy getting bigger, your energy field getting bigger. So the second one is September. September is juicy. It is a time of fresh starts. There is going to be a tremendous amount of fertile ground. In fact, the word they're giving me is, and it's kind of funny, is like manure. There's a lot of fertilization because they specifically use manure and they're laughing. I almost feel like there's going to be a lot of other people's bullshit, literal bullshit, is going to create this fertile ground for opportunities. Like there's so much bullshit is going to be laid down that the ground is just going to be ready. The earth is going to be ready for some fresh starts, for some new beginnings, especially for those of you who are focused on light-based initiatives. Ooh, this one hit hard. Now, I gotta be honest. I thought I was gonna be ready for July's energy. I was so sure I had done my work and that I was just going to take advantage of this expansive energy. I felt like I was being pulled along by a rope on the back of a horse, and I could not catch my breath. I talked about this in my private communities over and over again, and it was interesting. I think I always have a bias towards people who do their work and are generally trying to be kind and of the light and high vibrating. And that doesn't always give us protection from energies that are meant to really shift things inside of us. What I can say is, for myself and for the clients I was working with, what happened in July really did set the stage for what came to life in September. And then from September, we really did see that alivening energy to dreams, and it really was fertilized by people being done with the nonsense that was out there and saying, enough is enough. I am going to make the choices I need to make. And I'm curious if that is how September and maybe even into October played out for you. The idea that bullshit becomes the fertilizer of what's coming next felt very real to me. And I would love for you to leave a comment below. Has that played out for you? I also gave very specific guidance about planning in 3-month chunks and 18-month chunks. And let's look at how I talked about it back then. The other thing I want to talk about is planning 3 months out and planning 18 months out. This is what I was shown was super important. Be planning 3 months out because it's really going to help you understand, what to be doing day to day when things do feel chaotic. And it gives you a much more granular approach to your week to week activity. And if you're not sure I'm not going to spend a lot of time diving into that. I'm going to save that. I'm going to say, if that doesn't make sense to you, let's talk about it at the intuitive guidance and Q&A sessions. The other planning time frame is 18 months. And this is because a lot of what's going to happen this year is planting seeds work. It's not quick growth work. Even though manifestations are going to be happening really quickly, they're going to be the result of months and months and years sometimes work. It's not going to be something you decide to take action on right now and then you're going to manifest it next week or next month. It's not working like that. The things that are starting this year are very much about planting seeds energy. And so it's really important because I see people do this over and over and over again. Even the clients that I've met with already in these first few weeks of the year, they're setting these goals to do this by the end of 2025. I do not recommend goals for the end of 2025, except, if you're already in the process of learning how to, you're in the process of training for a marathon and you start it and there's a reasonable preparation period and you're going to run a marathon in, November, by all means, go ahead. I just mean that if you're going to start planning something right now, rather than make it a 12-month plan, make it an 18-month plan. 2026 is going to be a much better year for bringing that stuff to life. This one was quality, quality, quality all the way for people who trusted me and followed it. They were very grateful for it. This was not going to be a year where you could create a 12-month plan where you could really nail things down by the end of the year. But the good news is, if you were a part of my community and you didn't hear that, and now you're sitting in December and you're thinking, why couldn't I get everything done? And why haven't things moved faster? If you expand your goals to 18-month goals, the goals that you had for the end of the year, and you gave yourself until June of 2026, what does that mean for you? Does that open up space for you? Does that seem like it fits more? And as you look back on the short-term planning you did, do you like what you accomplished in those bursts? Did that make more sense for the energy we've been in? Remembering that this was a 9-year, an ending year. So it was really about wrapping things up, closing the cycle on things in short bursts so that you can be ready for 2026. How did that work for you? Next up, systems, power system, and what I called false power systems and false power gods. Let's look at that. There are false power structures in our world, and a false power structure is simply a structure that everyone's bought into, but aren't necessarily valuable to society. And a lot of them are based on very ego-driven goals and priorities. Those are false power structures, meaning, the golden rule is do unto others as you would do to yourself. And a lot of structures have been based on that in an ideal situation. Our school systems are built on, at least in the US, are built on the idea that every child has the right to an education. Now, look, I get it. It doesn't always work out that way. And there's a lot that could be done to improve it. But the actual structure, that's a good structure. It's a one that hasn't been built by ego. It's been built by real love and compassion. But there's other, and I'm not going to speak to the individual ones because we all know some, right? There are other power structures that we all buy into, but more because they're ego perceiving. Social media is there's these power structures, right? Is who's got more likes and who's got more lists and who's getting shown, who's not getting shown. And then in those power structures are these like false power gods, right? And they're the people that move all the little dials to make the power structure stay as they are. Certainly, uh, power structures that are based on keeping one type of person, one demographic, gender, race, color of your skin, even a preference of how you relate to God, right? Anything that's based on keeping one group, in power over another. Are they all going to like fall apart this year? No, they are. But the work to start to really dissolve them is going to start to happen this year. So it is very important for you to be aware of, where am I buying into false power structures that I don't need to, because those will start to disappear or start to disintegrate, and they will feel unstable. When you start to feel that instability, just know that maybe that you're inside of that experience. And the thing is, it's very quick to get out, is you just pull your power back in here. Separately, you may be in a position of potentially being a leader, right? And so it's differentiating between, am I leading effectively from love, from mutual respect, from divine ordinance, or am I controlling, right? And that controlling is really that guru culture. We're putting ourselves in a position when we're in this state of making ourselves mini gods. I'll be honest, I was a little more hopeful that we'd see some real significant crumbling. I think the erosion of many power structures and many gods has started to happen, but I don't think it really completed itself in 2025. So I would definitely say I got it wrong there. This is going to stretch out, and I would say it's going to stretch out probably until 2027. But I think things like the Epstein files bring to light so much of what we find concerning about power systems, the way we are now looking at various corporate structures and who's in charge and the way they're making decisions. And then I would invite you to look inside your own family of origin or your own immediate community. Where are you looking around and appreciating strong and integrity leaders? And where are you seeing others that you know need to go? Where has that clarity hit you? I think the clarity definitely landed for people this year. I think most people have reached a point where even the ones they thought they could definitely believe in, who were filled with a lot of bluster and a lot of promotional energy and made a lot of promises, they're seeing now they really can't follow through on those. And so I think we'll get the benefit of that erosion in the coming years in the way that people make decisions. But I don't think they fell as quickly as I thought they were going to fall in the 2025 12-month period. And finally, one of the biggest themes that I felt for everyone and that I closed with was the idea of polarization and the problem with polarization and the importance and value of community. So let's look at that clip, which takes me to the final point, and that is the importance of community. So where we're not looking to invest our energy in power gods and supporting false power structures, one thing we do want to invest in is community. Community is going to be the key. And where the headline was disruption and the key piece of advice was keep going within, the changes within, community is the key. So it's figuring out, where are your people? Where are your people, and becoming in relationship to them in a stronger way. And ideally in person when you can, if that's comfortable for you. May not be. There's some people that's way more comfortable to be at home, I'm thinking of one client in particular. Going outside is incredibly excruciating for her. If that's you, that's not what I'm talking about. But for instance, I went into the city to go to a conference and learn some new things on AI, and I did not want to go because it's cold, and then I had to take the train and blah, 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 blah. Get out of your comfort zones to be in community. Get out of your comfort zones to be in community. Very, very important. Even if that isn't yielding some great benefit immediately, the long-term benefit of it will be very obvious to you. Now, there's some asterisks at the bottom of that community, and that is that you can be for community or you can be against community. Now, I want you to just stop for a second and think, like, am I someone that's for community or am I against community? I think we'd all say for community, community is good. Community is one of my values. There's a good chance it's one of your values. It might not be your top value, but it's probably in there. Well, here's the rub. Here is the rub. Spirit was really specific about this. Polarization is the force against community. Polarization is the force against community. And so if you are doing something to support the structure of polarization in society, you're working against community. What does that mean? If you're seeing someone as other or a group of people as other, that is the poison of community. Othership is the poison of community. Well, if there's one prediction I made that I thought was the most important, it was this one. Polarization is eroding our communities, and community is the medicine we need. It is the answer. And it is my fervent hope that if you're watching this, whenever you're watching this, you agree with me, that you understand that we must work to learn how to be in relationship to others, even when we don't agree with them, to find middle ground, to appreciate the people who live in and around us, and to see everyone as equals, and to learn how to build community around that concept. If you are still in a state of othership where you're seeing someone else as the problem and you're on the good team and they're on the bad team, I really want to stress that that is pouring something into the energy soup we're all in that is just not helpful. We have to find a way to see others and to be in community with them without resisting who they are. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't use discernment. That doesn't mean that you can't disagree with people, but we must find a way to work in community with others if we are really going to have the experience that's been promised to us by spirit. Vibrations are increasing, right? The earth is heading there. It has headed there, I should say. It's humans that have to catch up with the increased vibration. And being in a fight with other fellow humans and deciding they are wrong and we are right, it is not helping us. We have to figure out how to be in community. So that's my wrap up. And it pretty much tracks with how predictions have always gone, even though I've kept them generally in a private community circles, is that the energy is usually right. The flow of what's going to happen, usually pretty accurate. The timeframes aren't always exact. And I always have my human self being hopeful and having an agenda of getting in the mix of those predictions, like wanting these power structures to come down more significantly than maybe they have. But I'm curious, if you were part of the original prediction event, how did this fly for you? What worked? What didn't? What helped? What didn't? What did you see being true for you? And if you're hearing this for the first time, I'm very curious on, as you reflect on 2025, what lands for you, what doesn't. Now, here is what I can promise you. I've got predictions coming for 2026, and now they're going to be public here on YouTube. So those will be out very soon. Make sure you subscribe below so that you do get those predictions. Now, of course, I'm always coming on here every month and giving you my monthly predictions. That'll continue into 2026. We're going to have a big global one coming up very soon. Again, subscribe below. And If you want to make your own personalized predictions for yourself, I would love for you to join us for Forecast Your Future. Forecast Your Future 25 was the small community where these originally happened. Forecast Your Future 26 is available. Tickets are available for purchase right now. That'll be happening from December 27th through the 30th. And where I am going to share predictions globally, publicly here on YouTube, I am going to be taking those predictions into much more detail privately for the Forecast Your Future audience. So I'll be sharing some global themes, but then I'll be talking about which political leaders I think are going to be affected, which countries, which industries are going to be affected, because a lot of what I'm seeing is money oriented. So I've already been getting the predictions for 2026. Money is a big theme, where money's flowing, where power is flowing. And I will share those here at a high level. But if you want the details on specifically where I think it's going to affect everyone, then join us for Forecast Your Future 2026. You can go to pattylennon.com/forecast to get your ticket. Now, I do have those tickets on sale. When you're watching this, you are going to have access to them at the lowest price you can get. What I mean by that is the price is going up week over week by $10. I'm doing that so you have an incentive to buy early, but also if you're catching the sale a little bit later than someone else, it doesn't feel too painful. So go to pattylen.com/forecast, grab your ticket, and you can come have fun with us inside the community. Beside doing the predictions, I'll also be walking you through how to pull a month by month Oracle card spread for yourself. So with my guides, you're going to get month by month predictions. I'm going to show you how to get those predictions, and I'm going to be on with you live so I can help you understand what you're getting in case you're new to this process. I think one of the things I can say for sure for 2026, and you're probably already seeing, is your ability to rely on your internal directives. What you know is true is incredibly important. You've seen that this year. It's going to be even more important next year. Forecast Your Future is going to help you strengthen that muscle and see what's coming, so you know where your power months are, you know where your rest months are, where you know where your play months are, and you can really take advantage of the energy that's coming for you. Beautiful day. And again, subscribe below so you see all the new information I'm putting out about this over the next couple of weeks.